Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, music listeners. Today, I'll be looking at a project by singer, songwriter, producer, experimental pop artist brakence. This is the second full length LP from brakence after his strong debut record Punk 2, and it seems like he kept up with his strong track record here with Hypochondriac. Let's hop straight into it with the first track, Bugging. Now, this track sets a tone to show why this album might be one of the best produced I've ever heard. There's some really slick bass on this track, a super catchy chorus, and there's some noises that brakence chooses that are quite unusual, that fit really well into this track despite being kind of an outlier on the track. It's produced super well, and it kept me coming back throughout the entire year. Now, Bugging transitions straight into Caffeine, and it hits you like a truck. I cannot believe the first time I listened to this, how hard this song hits you as soon as it starts. High energy the entire time. The bass comes at you strong. It's really braggadocious, which is a completely different tone than the rest of the album. And even though the tone's a bit different, I still love this track. It goes so hard, and it might be one of my favorites on the entire album. Now, after the wild ride that was Caffeine, we jumped straight into Venus Flytrap. And this was my top song of the year on my Spotify Wrapped, and it's no mystery why. The melody just gets stuck in your head so quickly. That chorus is so catchy, like all the songs on this record. And this is where we first hear the mantra of hypochondriac. I think of you, my blood pressure spikes. I'll have a heart attack. And this pops up a bunch of times over the album, especially near the end. And I just think that this is a really cool, catchy pop track that you can play anywhere, and that's a bit rare for this record because it is a bit more experimental and a lot of people might not be used to it. So if there's any song that you'd play for your friends in the car, I think it'd be this one. Then we get into Teeth, which is a bit more caffeine than it is Venus Flytrap, as it's a bit more braggadocious, where he talks about how he's blowing up on the internet. He can't stop manufacturing heat, which is a true statement, by the way. And there's a great breakdown near the end where his voice is pitched up a little bit, transitions into the next track. It's beautiful. We see more of the samples, more of the Masters of the Shadows type samples. I think that it's great. Other people don't like it. Other people don't like the lyrics. Fantano. Like the Elden Ring reference. Some might find it cringe. I think it's creative. Some might find the samples cringe. I think it's creative. Overall, a great track. Teeth transitions into Intellectual Greed, and this is more of the same. More of the same, great production. More of the same, just great lyrics, great hooks. And this has one of the best guitar riffs on the entire album. I cannot help but to whip out a little air guitar every time I listen to this song on the chorus. It's great. It's catchy. It's infectious. Another great track. Next up is 5G, and I found this song on a TikTok of all places. I know. But I was instantly hooked as soon as I heard it, so I checked out this album, and that was probably one of the greatest decisions I ever made. This song is a mix of like drill hip hop, hyper pop, and Midwest emo. It doesn't get more creative than that. It's super catchy, and I love it. After 5G, we have Trembling, and this, to many, is the worst track on the album, and I kind of agree. It's a little repetitive, and it just feels like a descent into madness. It's very fast-paced, very aggressive, a bit off time, and it dives into more glitchcore than anything else, which isn't everyone's cup of tea. I still like it. I still think it's a great addition, and it just provides more story than overall sound. But I think that this is a great part of the album. Probably the worst track, yes, but still not bad in any stretch of the imagination. Then we have CBD, which is more of a pop track than a hip-hop aggressive track that we've seen earlier. And it stands for Chillin' by Death and not Weed. So that's not what I thought the first time I listened to that. But it's another very catchy track, probably weaker than the ones found earlier in the album, but a great addition. nonetheless. Then we get into Stung, which provides another direction to this album, as it's more of a rock-centric song, more than anything, I think. And looking into the lyrics in this one, it's obvious to see that this song is about not being able to find love, as one of the main lyrics that stood out to me is, "If I want a honey, I know I gotta be stung." And I know, might be a little cringe to some people, but I think it's a decent metaphor. When the guitar kicks in at the end, though, goes so hard. I love this track, and I'm really glad that it's on this album where it is. After that is Argyle, which was the lead single for this album, and it's probably the most emo on the album, as he repeats, "I just wanna be dead" throughout the track, with a bunch of hard-hitting bass, twinkly guitars, very well produced once again. That's a common theme on this album. And it slowly shows his descent into depression and sets up the end of the album really well, in my opinion. Then we have Deep Fake, which dives deeper into his depression while explaining that he doesn't feel comfortable in his own skin and he wishes that someone else would just take his place to make the pain go away. And not only is the message hard hitting, the bass hits really hard. It's super distorted, which I love personally. Some people might not be a fan of it, but it just goes so much harder with the distortion. And the way he screams the lyrics, I think his voice is beautiful. Singing, screaming, high pitched, I don't care. It's beautiful all around. What a great track. Now on to Introvert. This song provides two very different sections of the same track. The first having really high falsetto, complemented with really sweet, soft guitars that all build up to the end portion of the song with super hard power chords, screaming almost metal-like vocals, where by the end of the song, it seems like his depression is won, if you know what I mean. And it's a very emotional moment of the album as it transitions into the final track, which is probably the most emotional of them all. That track is called Hypochondriac, which is the title track of this album, and it's a piano ballad of sorts, explaining his experience in the afterlife, and it's definitely the most emotional, soft track on the album. None of the experimental stuff, none of the bass, just a piano ballad to make you feel something at the end of the album. And it ends with noises of him texting, which signify how the internet and digital culture these days has contributed to his depression and how it's very toxic for a lot of people. And I think it was a great way to end the album on a really emotional moment after a really emotional second half of this album. Now, this album as a whole really shows off Brakence's versatility and range, as you can listen to some of these songs working out, crying, laughing, having a good time. Basically, there's something for everyone on here, and there's a different variety of styles as well: rock, hyperpop, hip-hop, pop, Midwest emo. There's something for everybody, and there's a variety of singing styles as well. When he uses his falsetto, it's beautiful. Screaming, beautiful. Regular voice, beautiful. Pitched up, beautiful. I love it all. I think it's great. One of the most creative albums I've ever listened to. And even though the lyrics might be a bit suspect at times, I think they're really genuine and emotional and really show off his depression. And that's a very vulnerable topic. And I think he did a great job of expressing it and how digital age of today can affect it. And although the lyrics are a bit weird at times, I do not think it's worth giving it a 5 over. In fact, this is my favorite album of all time. I'm giving it a 100. Thank you guys. Have a good one.